My Chemical Romance's The Black Parade, in my opinion, is the definitive greatest album of all time. Released in 2006, this was MCR's third studio album. I love this album for multiple reasons. Firstly, from a musical standpoint, all the songs in this album have incredible guitar work, from Ray's solos to Frank's beautiful octave riffs that complement Gerard's vocals, Mikey's bass playing that creates a sturdy foundation that carries the chord progressions, to the incredible percussion by Bob, especially in the opening of This Is How I Disappear, and in the bridge of Welcome to the Black Parade. But the main reason I love this album is the rich story it is able to craft in 51 minutes and 57 seconds. The album starts with the end. Now come all to this tragic affair, where you are greeted to the sounds of a heartbeat monitor before an acoustic guitar and Gerard welcome you into the album, where we are first introduced to the patient crying out for someone to save him. That is until the song Dead comes crashing in, and we learn that the patient only has 2 weeks left to live. That leaves what I believe to be the patient's mother to state, next, the song This Is How I Disappear shows how the patient is reaching out to a former lover, realising that without her, no one will remember him and he will just be forgotten. The memory of him will disappear. The chaotic nature of this track helps to emphasise how desperate this character is feeling, with lines such as supporting his descent and the lengths that he will go through to take his mind off the cancer. This leads us perfectly into The Sharpest Lives, which allows us to see what the patient has been up to after finding out he has cancer, as it shows that the patient has become reckless and has begun drinking to hide the pain. I also wanted to mention Mikey's bass line during the solo, as it is brilliant, and I think his contribution to the band is often overlooked. This brings us to the centrepiece of the album, Welcome to the Black Parade, which is where I believe the patient dies and is brought into the afterlife by Death, who comes to him in the form of a marching band from the patient's past. This leads into what I consider to be the second act of the album, the aftermath of the patient's death and his journey through hell. The second act begins with I Don't Love You, which shows the effect of the patient's death has on his former lover and that they didn't have a perfect relationship. And in the days following his death, she begins to love him less and less. Patient's journey into hell begins with House of Wolves, whose intro resembles a demonic jazz band that is tormenting the patient on all the bad things he has done in life. This is shown through the characters of Fear and Regret, who are introduced in Welcome to the Black Parade, as they make the patient question if he was a good or bad man. This brings us on to Cancer, a beautiful track that allows the patient to reflect on his death, and that he realises he never got to marry the person he loved, and the hardest part of dying was losing her. Next is my personal favourite song on the entire album, Mama. This shows how the patient was once a soldier and is being reminded of all the lives he took by Mother War, a character symbolising the patient's own mother who disowned him after what he did during the war, stating, leading her to think her son got what he deserved when he got cancer at a young age back in the song Dead. The next track, Sleep, shows the patient struggling with his own morality and beginning to believe that an eternity in hell is what he deserves. This is represented by consciousness telling him to just sleep and accept the situation, and this is when a wave of noise hits the song where you can just about hear his subconsciousness telling him to wake up and he doesn't deserve this punishment. And then there's the song Teenagers, something that I struggle to try to fit into the wider narrative of this album, and sometimes I just think maybe it's a song they just included, or maybe it does have a deeper meaning. But if you want to try and figure out the story of it, you could say that it really wasn't his fault, it was just the upbringing of his life in his teenage years that caused him to be not a great person. But I don't know, I don't really feel like the song properly fits into the story of the album. This, however, brings us into the third act of the album, beginning with Disenchanted. This song allows the patient to reflect onto his life up until his death, and beautifully leads into famous last words.
That I can make you stay, but where's your heart? But where's your heart? But where's your...
Famous last words is the patient stating that he isn't afraid to walk alone for eternity, and he is given a last chance to be saved, and this is where I believe the story to have two endings. Firstly, there is the album ending.
I am not afraid to walk this world alone. If you say I'll be forgiven, nothing you can say can stop me going home.
Where the song ends with a vocal fade out, symbolising that the patient has been saved and is going to heaven. This is what I like to call the good or happy ending. The alternative ending, however, uses the music video ending of the song, which ends with a guitar chord symbolising the patient being left in hell, which leads to an additional track which I believe wraps up this alternative ending perfectly. This next track is the song Heaven Help Us, an underrated song that isn't on the original album. This shows the patient left in hell pleading that heaven comes down to save him. But in the end, it doesn't. Leaving him in hell to suffer forever. This is the bad or unhappy ending. So yeah, this is why I love this album. I just think it has an amazing story that can be interpreted in so many different ways. Many people think, oh, the patient dies and dead, or he doesn't die at all. And there's even some people who believe the album isn't in. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, I have a podcast, and now that's what I call Comedy Podcast. The link to it will be in the description. You can also come follow me on Twitter at now_that's comedy, just to hear all my stupid opinions on movies and stuff. So yeah, thank you. Goodbye.